What's good, everyone? This is 718 podcast. This is boy William H. Straff. I'm gonna think of a name for one of these things, something real witty like a BS report, something like that. We're gonna try and do these things once a week. Talk about mostly sports, some politics, maybe some romance stuff like that. Get the ladies involved. I never seen a good argument about relationships I never liked. On the line we got my man, your man Midtown Mo. Say what up.
What up, everyone? Glad to join the inaugural podcast. And this is your hater's favorite hater.
Yes, we got my man Mo Bayless is on here to be my contrarian. We were supposed to have my man Cousin D on, but he's
He's
probably
scared.
he's in trouble with his wife. Same, which is basically the same thing. All right, so we're gonna try and do this first and 10 style. I got 10 questions here. Mo has only an idea about two of the questions. The other 80 has no idea about. Luckily for him, I haven't prepared anything, so I'm just going off. I'm just winging it just like he is. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. First question. The best team in the NFL right now is?
Green Bay Packers.
Why?
They're undefeated. One. And if you've seen them play, with the exception of their defense, which surprisingly has not stopped anybody, they can pretty much outscore anyone in the league. So I rank them as number one. They got arguably the best quarterback that's playing right now, the best offensive weapons, arguably. They got a couple weaknesses, but right now they're playing better than anybody.
I mean, that's hard to argue. Now, I don't have this schedule in front of me because my computer's a piece of garbage, but off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. They play the Saints at home. They played the Saints at home. They won. They beat Carolina. Last week they beat Atlanta. The other two wins they beat. I forget who. Actually, I don't think they've had. Actually, they haven't had a really I wouldn't say they've had an easy schedule, so it's not arguable. Um, yeah, like right now, I mean, there's only two undefeated teams left, them and the Lions, and obviously everyone
And,
loves the Lions, but
and they will both be undefeated going into the Thanksgiving game.
that that is a perfect segue to my next question. Green Bay's first loss will be to. Now,
Where is that?
I
Where
will.
is that? Where is that Detroit Green Bay Thanksgiving game being played? In Detroit?
Let me ask you a question. When was the last
Yeah.
time you saw Detroit playing Thanksgiving on the road?
When is the last time we saw Detroit play?
The Thanksgiving game on the road.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I was just confirming.
Yeah, that they always play.
I think it's very feasible that Green Bay's first loss will come against Detroit on Thanksgiving Day.
All right. Let me pull up. I had
Which is crazy because that would make Detroit something like 8-0 or 9-0.
That would make them.
I believe would make them 9-0.
I definitely pulled up the Detroit schedule by accident.
Actually, I'm pretty certain of it that they'll both be 8-0 going into the game.
All right, I have the Green Bay schedule right here. So let me go game by game, just to make sure that there's nothing that I'm missing. St. Louis Sunday, that's a win. At Minnesota.
Definitely win. Can't throw the ball. That's how you beat the Packers. You throw the ball.
All right, bye week. They'd probably beat the bye week. Sunday at San Diego.
I'm not. San Diego's a hoax. I'm not scared of San Diego whatsoever.
Wait a minute. Now, usually San Diego starts off 2-3, 2-4, whatever.
Have you seen Philip Rivers play?
Yes,
He's
I have.
single-handedly could lose some games. They're playing terrible and somehow winning because they have a soft schedule.
I'll pull this schedule up in a second.
They're not losing to San Diego.
All right, but that's a tricky game. All right, home for Minnesota, win. Tampa, home for Tampa Bay. Home for Tampa Bay.
Josh Freeman's not playing well at all.
All right. So that brings us to at Detroit. See, now the key is at Detroit 4 days after the Tampa Bay game, 12:30.
Yeah. That's 4 days after the Tampa Bay game, a 12:30 start. Detroit Lions Stadium. Did you hear that stadium Monday night? Oh my goodness.
Unfortunately, I did not because the bar that I was in Monday night decided it would be better to play. Now that's what I call music's 103 instead of the audio sound. I
believe on one drive there were at least 4 false starts.
Well, yeah, that we definitely saw. There was crazy false starts.
I do think, it's tricky. I think if Detroit goes into that game undefeated, they will come out undefeated somehow.
Okay.
Barring injury for both teams.
Of course. So, and I'll read off the last 6 games of Green Bay's schedule, and you tell me if you see last 5 games. You tell me last 6. No, last 5. I'm all over the place, and you tell me if you see any losses. So let's say they beat Detroit Thanksgiving. Then they get 10 games off. And they go at the New York Football Giants.
That's a tough game. As much of a non-fan of Eli that I am, it all depends on which Giants show up. I'm upset with the Giants because I knew this Seattle game was a trap game. I just knew it. It was a classic Giants trap game, and I said I still picked them in Survivor and lost.
Along with 90% of the country.
It all depends on which football Giants team. That's a winnable game for the Giants. It all depends on who shows up. But I tell you this, Aaron Ross is terrible. And I'm not just saying that because me and Dorian met him in playing craps in Atlantic City. I'm saying that because he is terrible. His wife is bad, but he's terrible.
Yeah, that's a story for another day. And I'll just read off their last 4 games after the Giant game. Home for Oakland, at Kansas City, Sunday night, Christmas night, Sunday night, home for Chicago, and they finish at home with Detroit on the 1st. Any of those possible losses?
I think the only 2 games that would worry me if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I mean, any game is losable, but at Detroit, Detroit's going to be so turned up for that game that I just don't think – I think Detroit pulls that win. Other than that, I don't see them losing a game. But I think losing a game for Green Bay would be good. I never really liked, going completely undefeated I mean, as good as it sounds, I think you got to work on some things, and a loss brings you back down in reality. No one cares if you go undefeated in the regular season. Actually, do it in the Patriots.
All right. Moving on to the next question. So, the worst team in the NFL is?
Actually, I did answer this in the spreadsheet that you sent over, which I have yet to see posted, by the way.
That's because I'm a slacker.
Man, I want to say the Minnesota Football Vikings. I want to say they're the worst team simply because they have talent and they still suck. But they're not worse than the Miami Dolphins, who are probably the worst team in the football. But I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to give Miami a pass because they lost their starting quarterback. So I'm going to give them a pass. I'm going to say Minnesota Vikings suck. They have Adrian Peterson. They got Percy Harvin. They got an okay defense. Their quarterback is absolutely horrible. You let Tavares Jackson go. You let Sidney Rice go. I don't understand it. Minnesota, it's terrible.
I'm gonna give you a little hint. The Dolphins were terrible before Chad Henne and Cope went out. Like I have them as
I
the
think
worst
Miami
team.
would have beat the Vikings.
Miami couldn't beat the Browns. Miami lost to the Browns, and the Browns are terrible. Like the Browns
Hey
scored
man,
17-1. I
Dolphins
think
are,
Miami's the worst team in the league.
you know, I mean, record-wise, I just the Vikings are that bad. No team should be that bad when you have Adrian Peterson in your backfield. It's impossible.
Um,
Adrian Peterson scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter yesterday, and I still was not confident that the Vikings were going to win that game.
but they won the game, so they have a
They
win.
won somehow. They won.
All right, that's because Arizona's terrible.
Yeah, I hate McNabb. I'm done with him.
All right, let me. Okay,
Which brings up, a question I was thinking is probably not on your list, but I'm gonna surprise and ask this question.
shoot.
I was thinking the other day that in fantasy football it's very hard to trade players, and I was wondering if it's, why was that the case? And then I started thinking that it's actually very hard to trade players in the actual NFL. Because when you think about, and I think you have Tebow on here, but you think in general of the trades that could potentially make a team better. Football teams just don't trade. For example, Vince Young is like number 2, right now number 3 on the depth chart of the Philadelphia Eagles. You telling me you couldn't trade him for a quality linebacker what the Eagles need? Or Tim Tebow's now the starter. You're telling me you can't trade Kyle Orton to Miami football Dolphins and get someone you need? Or Cincinnati. You have Carson Palmer there. I don't care if you don't want to give in to him. Trade him and get a player to make your team better. I don't understand why there's these starting quarterbacks sitting on the bench that you can get players for, and you refuse to trade them.
Here's what I would say the reason why is. One, if you're a backup on a team, most likely there's a reason why you're a backup. I mean, and now obviously
Kyle Orton will not start another game for the Denver Broncos.
All right,
You're telling me he couldn't start for another team?
Well, think about this. If you can't start for the 1-4 Denver Broncos, who can you start for?
Miami Dolphins.
Really?
I would put Kyle Orton on the Vikings.
You know what's
and they are not 1-4.
You know what's ironic? I've been listening to the Dan Le Batard show the last few months, and during training camp, because they were so fed up with Chad Henne because they still think Dan Reed's gonna walk through that door. At one training camp, I was open to the public. The crowd started chanting, "We want Orton. We want Orton. We want Orton." And some of the guys on the radio were like, maybe we should bring Kyle Orton. Chad Henne's in third. Now look at those people. Those people sound stupid now because Orton just lost his job to Tebow.
Well, there's some. First of all, let me, in full disclosure, I'm a huge Tebow fan. Huge Tebow fan. It's not all Kyle Orton's fault that they're 1-4, I believe. Not his fault. But he's in a situation where you have Tebow, and for so many reasons that have nothing to do with football, and the fact that, frankly, Tebow just wins games. Like, I want to go play for Tebow right now. He inspires, and he almost won the game the other day if freaking Brandon Lloyd didn't drop the pass.
Almost counts of horseshoes and hand grenades.
Right. So Tebow has to start because you're not winning with Kyle Orton. I think you can win with Tebow. In the worst case scenario, you win with neither, and you get hopefully Andrew Luck or the other guy in the draft. So
what other guy?
Trade Kyle Orton. Denard Robinson.
Denard Robinson is not an NFL quarterback.
Hey, he wins games.
Yeah, a lot of people listen. So did Pat White. He ain't an NFL quarterback either. And the other reason why trades don't happen is because you have to learn a brand new system. And if you trade a quarterback midseason, now quarterback has to learn a brand new system midseason. You can't put him out there. It makes no sense. And let me get this straight. Kyle Orton, his last 27 games, is 6-21.
He's not good, but he's better than Matt Moore.
Is he?
Better than McNabb.
Is he? Is he?
Listen, that's Kyle Orton. What about Carson Palmer? Like, trade him. Like,
well, that's the Bengals being stubborn and stupid. So whatever.
It's absurd. It's really. If I was Carson Palmer, I would declare myself active and sit on the bench and collect a check.
Well, yeah. Well, I just let you know how bad he wants. And now we have another seamless segue. I guess you already answered this question because my next question is: should Tebow be the starter?
Absolutely.
Now here's what I would say. I'm gonna play devil. I'm gonna play the opposite Skip Bayless because Skip Bayless is usually contrarian, but since he loves Tebow, I'll be opposite Skip Bayless.
Love Tebow. Tebow time.
Why do you have to start Tim Tebow?
You have to start Tebow. One, you're 1-4. Kyle Orton had said you should have traded him, but Kyle Orton is not leading you to the playoffs. I mean, it's just not happening. Some change needs to happen with that team to light a fire under them. And it's not the coach because they just got a coach. They just got a brand new coach. I think Tim Tebow does things that Kyle Orton can't do. Denver doesn't really have that good of a running game. No, Sean Moreno sucks. Willis McGahee's a little bit older. Tebow can take off, and he will take off. He just brings a different dynamic. I think you'll see linebackers have to play a little bit closer to the line, opening up the middle. So there are football reasons, I think, and you have to see what you have there. Like, he can play football. So either he's going to be a success or he's going to fail, but you got to find that out. You draft, although it wasn't John Fox that drafted him, the organization drafted him pretty high. Got to figure out what you have. And then from a non-football standpoint, the fans want Tebow. Give the fans what they want.
You know, there's an old saying: if you listen to the fans, you end up sitting next to the fans. And my thing is this: it goes back to this.
What happened in Detroit? Detroit was telling Matt Millen to get the hell out of town. Listen to the fans then.
Well, that was easy because Matt Millen's terrible. But all right, going back to the stat I said.
Who does Denver play? Oh, Denver's on the bye. Who does Denver play coming out of the bye?
Take one good guess. We've discussed them a little bit in the last 3 minutes.
Not Green Bay.
No.
Green Bay?
No.
Detroit? No.
Nope.
San Diego?
Terrible team.
Miami.
There we go. At Miami.
He's going to destroy Miami, and Tebow Mania is going to be at an all-time high.
Watch Miami win.
Tebow's going to somehow throw for 250, 2 touchdowns, and run for 80 and a touchdown. I picked up Tim Tebow in my fantasy league. He's going to destroy.
Oh man.
John Fox is going to look like a genius.
Here's what I was gonna say. Let's go back to this Kyle Orton stat. Kyle Orton in his last 27 games is 6-21. That means that at the beginning of the season, he was 5-23. Excuse me. Yes, 7 minus 4 is 3. 5-23.
I mean, Denver's just not a good team.
So,
they don't have a running game. They're deep. I mean, Champ Bailey's your best defensive player.
No, that's 5-23.
45.
What's 21 minus 4? 17. So Tebow was 5-17 as a starter in his last 22 games. So clearly, so clearly, Orton didn't show you that he could win in his last 21 games. Yet, you made Tebow at the beginning of the season was number 3 on the depth chart. Not even number 2, number 3 behind Brady Quinn. What happened between the end of the preseason and 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon Eastern time that made you say, hey, not only shouldn't Kyle Orton be playing anymore, but the guy who was behind Brady Quinn on the depth chart is now the starter. It's like
I'll tell you exactly what happened. The owner of the Denver Broncos, isn't Elway an owner?
no, it's Pat Bowlen is the owner.
He called down on that phone on the sideline to John. And he said, "Kyle Ward, let me speak to John Fox. Put Tebow in the friggin' game." That's exactly what happened.
Okay, all right.
Brady Quinn is an afterthought.
Next question, and we semi covered this. Is Skip Bayless for real? Like Brandon Lloyd. For those who don't know, on 1st and 10 on Monday, Skip Bayless basically said that Brandon Lloyd, because he was a big Horton supporter in the offseason, subconsciously dropped the 2-point conversion in the end zone from Tebow because he doesn't like Tebow, and that's why they lost the game. Now, I know that Skip, he's an agitator, he's a contrarian, and they ask him, all right, take the other side on this argument. We know it's ridiculous, but really, is that the best you could come up with? Really, Skip? Really, Skip? People are dropping footballs on purpose. Never mind a dude who was good defense and dude knocked the ball out of his hand. Really, Skip?
I was a Skip fan for a long time, but I think he's on performance-enhancing haterade this past year. He has absolutely been out of control. Now, in his defense, I loved how he basically made Ocho Cinco cry on national TV because he had the tissue box up on the podium, and Skip just laid into him for 5 to 10 minutes. Basically said, "You're not a Hall of Famer. You suck."
Which is true.
Which is absolutely true. I think about 50% of what Skip says is Skip believing it, and then he's adding a 50% hype. I mean, some of the stuff he said Andy Reid gave Michael Vick a $100 million contract so he could stand in the wind and put his nose in the air to the entire NFL. I thought that was stretching it a bit.
Skip, you've gone too far, as we say.
I actually, a better question is, who do you like to see debate Skip? I'd have to say Stephen A. is absolutely number one, even though I don't agree with a lot of stuff Stephen A. says. I think he's number one. And then I think that the twins,
Doug and Ryan. Yeah, they getting his
Doug
ass.
and Ryan. I think Doug and Ryan have a good shot. I think Broussard was on today, and I don't like Broussard. Skip runs circles around Broussard.
You can't, listen, you gotta support your light-skinned brother, man. You can't not like Chris Broussard.
The only reason Broussard has a job is because he has LeBron's phone number. That is it. He has nothing.
And he has Maverick Carter's phone number, and he has...
Yeah, that's it.
And, you know who will be good against? You know who will be good against Skip? Me. I'd kick his ass. Moving on to the next question.
Bill Simmons would be.
I'd kick his ass. Next question. Is Brett Favre an asshole?
I'd like to see Bill Simmons debate Skip. I'm sorry. What was your question?
Is Brett Favre an asshole?
Yes. What he said about Aaron Rodgers was absolutely ridiculous.
He's a bitter old man.
Even though it's somewhat true that the team that he did was very talented, and I think they would have been deep in the playoffs, maybe a Super Bowl appearance and win had they kept Brett Favre, which is actually what I was a proponent of, for them to keep Brett Favre. But they let him go. Aaron Rodgers is a young quarterback. It's a young team. He's a hater. And Aaron Rodgers is going to have more Super Bowl rings than Brett Favre at the end of the day.
But you know what's ironic? Brett had that same effing team and didn't win the Super Bowl. He had the same team.
This is the same guy sending penis pictures to masseuses or whatever.
I'm just trying to say, how you say, I don't know why it took so long. You had that much talent. It's basically the same team.
Same guy that went to the Jets to basically sit out a year so he could go play for the Vikings and still didn't do it.
But it's still Donald Driver, who's older now than he was back then in that 07 season. still had Greg Jennings, still had Ryan Grant, still had Charles Woodson, still had Chad Clifton, still like damn it, still and it had AJ Hawk. It's the same team. Tell
I'm
him to sit
betting
his
that
ass
Brett was.
down.
I'm betting that Brett wasn't much of a leader. I bet he was a prima donna that never practiced and had like his own private locker room. So I'm certain guys didn't really care to play with him. Also.
Yeah, Brett screwed you. All right, we're gonna move off of football for a second. NBA owners versus NBA players. Whose side are you on?
Neither. I don't like neither side. The owners continually give out $100 million contracts to people like Rashard Lewis and Gilbert Arenas, which is absolutely baffling. Can you blame the players for it? Absolutely not. Even though I feel like Rashard Lewis should give somebody back. I just think he's terrible. The players are not going to win this argument, period. They're not getting 53% DRI. It's not going to happen. They might not even get 50 at this rate. They better stop doing charity games and start doing for-profit games, because these guys' lifestyle, the 265 NBA players, 200 of which we don't know their name, can't survive without a season. And right now, I think 2 weeks are. I think the person that is benefiting the most out of this whole situation is Kobe Bryant.
Why Kobe Bryant?
You give Kobe Bryant a 40-game season, he might single-handedly win his 6th ring. Single-handedly. And with Kobe's age and his knees, it's very hard for him to go 82 games and the playoffs and, run with these, Kevin Durant's of the world and whatnot. But you telling me you give Kobe a half a season and the playoffs? Kobe might single-handedly win.
Interesting. Who I blame?
What I do have a question. If the Miami Heat win a shortened season championship, oh my gosh, Skip Bayless will not give LeBron his due.
Of course not. And
will there be an asterisk?
Okay, officially there won't be an asterisk, but listen, there are people that still give the Spurs an asterisk for 99, and those people are stupid because the playing field is level. Everyone had the same 50-game season, like go play football. So, go play basketball. So, yeah, there was because of the backlash of it being the Heat, that people will say, "Oh, well, let's see what happens in full 82-game season, yada yada yada." I agree with you. There will be backlash.
And that's probably why the Miami Heat will win the championship, just because I can just see the hate for LeBron.
But I'll say this: whether you play 40 games or whether you play 80 games, you still got to play best of 7 4 times. So
I think you could very well see a Lakers Miami Heat title picture in that case.
Well, look, think about it. Let's say Miami goes 42-8 in a 50-game season. They get
I don't know if it'll be 50.
They get the 1 seed, whatever, right?
Right.
They had home court advantage last year in the finals and lost. So it's not like a 50-game season will help them, get something they didn't get.
No, I don't think it helps Miami. I think they'll do exactly what they did last year, regardless of the length of the season, and get right back to the NBA Finals. Now, will that loss to the Dallas Mavericks cause LeBron specifically to play out of his mind and win? That's to be seen. What I think it will help, I think it will help the Lakers, and I think you'll see the Lakers on the other side. I think it's indifferent to Miami Heat how long the season is. I think they're going to represent the East. It's on the West. I think you can very well see Kobe Bryant average something like 40 and single-handedly win this thing.
All right.
Doran would be happy to hear.
But back to back to
the players versus owners argument.
I 100% blame the owners, and here's why. And this is something that I don't understand why I'm not hearing more of this. Okay. The players currently get 57% of the revenue, right? So
57?
Yeah, currently they get 57% of BRI.
That's made up of, that's represented in their salary?
No, like basically the way it works is that.
Or that's represented the salary cap?
No, it's not necessarily the cap, but it's basically the players. No, the owners have to spend 57% of basketball-related income. The problem is you don't know how much basketball-related income you get until the end of the season. So what happens is if the money is short, that there's money that goes in an escrow fund, and if at the end of the season they figure out the revenue is basically if the revenue is higher, then the players get that money. If it's not, then they don't. But what I'm saying is the owners are saying, listen, we're losing money, we can't afford this, yada, yada, yada. We can only afford to commit to 47%. Now they're actually saying 50-50. Here's the problem. Let's say the players say, you know what? We'll give you 47% of income. And it's cool, boom, lockout's over, we're playing ball. So now it's 47%. 2 years from now, you're the Sacramento Kings. Go 3 years from now. You're 3 years from now. You're the Sacramento Kings. You might be the Anaheim Kings, but you're the Kings. DeMarcus Cousins is a free agent. DeMarcus Cousins, even though he's really talented, is averaging like 14 and 8.
In his contract year, he'll average. His agent will get him to average 16.
Okay, put it this way. I'll tell you this. Let's say his first 3 years in the league, his average is like 15 and 7. Then all of a sudden his contract year comes up, and all of a sudden he's averaging like 24 and 10.
Yep, which is very likely to happen.
All right. I'm
the New York Knicks.
I am DeMarcus Cousins' agent. I come to you and I say, we want the maximum salary available for DeMarcus Cousins, which will be 4 years and 4 years, 60 million, let's say, right? You're the Sacramento Kings. You know damn well he bowled out because of contract year. But you give him the money anyway. 2 years later, DeMarcus Cousins goes back to 14 and 8. And you can't do anything about it. No one wants his contract. You can't move, yada yada yada. So then 4 years, and that basically cripples your franchise. 4 years later, you know what you're gonna do, Sacramento Kings owner? You're gonna say, hey, we need you to take a bigger cut in salary because these contracts are killing us. So we want 40% we only want to give 40% of the revenue. Now, if you're and the point is,
well,
hold on. But the point is, no matter what the revenue split is, it could be 40%, it could be 60%, it could be 80%. If I have if my revenue split is 57% and my salary cap is $56 million, and I decide to give one player 20% of that, I'm screwed. And guess what? If the salary cap is now a hard cap of $40 million, and I decide to give 20% of that to DeMarcus Cousins, I'm screwed anyway. It doesn't matter what percentage number is, because the problem is, owner, no matter what the number is, you are still going to pay DeMarcus Cousins more money than he should.
Well,
Fix that.
Here's why the owners have to do this. It's because
they're stupid.
They can't on the back end have a friendly agreement that says, hey, New York Knicks and Isaiah Thomas or Donnie Walsh or whatever the hell it is, or hey, Sacramento, or hey, Detroit, do not give 4 years, $60 million to DeMarcus Cousins. That's not going to happen. So what this is a collective agreement with the owner to reduce the amount of money that they can pay a player, because at the end of the day, the owners are competing against each other. So the reason why Sacramento has to give DeMarcus Cousins 4 years, $60 million, even though they know damn well he doesn't deserve it, is because they know that he's probably going to get it somewhere else, and they have to field a competitive team. If they're the organization that's going to be like, well, we're going to pay players fair value, they're never going to win a championship.
But you know what? You know why?
So what they're doing right now is lowering the available money and still being competitive, which I understand.
But that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't help the problem, because guess what? No matter what the threshold is, DeMarcus Cousins is going to say, and I'm just using him as an example, he's going to say, hey, I want the maximum amount of money available to me under this. And no matter what it is, he shouldn't get that money. Now, the thing is, honestly, and this is the problem, the NBA wants to think they're football and they're not. If the Knicks want to give DeMarcus Cousins the max salary, let them go ahead, because you know something though, if DeMarcus Cousins turns out to be a complete bust, granted it may cripple the Knicks competitively. However, they won't be bitching financially because they're New York, they can eat that. Meanwhile, the problem is these smaller teams, instead of like look what Oklahoma City does. They don't make those mistakes. They draft.
Well, they got a little bit lucky in the draft.
But but guess what? Okay, it is a little luck for everyone, but it's not like Sacramento's not picking high too. The difference is Sacramento goes and drafts Jimmer Fredette 7, who does the exact same things Tyreek Evans does. And then when they can't win, they say, "Oh, we can't win because we don't have enough money." At the end of the day, it's going to be the same problem. What the NBA only needs to do is stop giving Eric Dampier money. Stop doing that. Stop doing that.
Unfortunately, for better or worse, the players are not going to win this argument. It is not. They'll be lucky if they get 50.
You know what's funny? I think the players might win, because I think the players are going to be like, you know what? A lot of us can play.
Who has more to lose? Who has more to lose? The billionaire owners or the paycheck living players?
I agree, but I think that the players are going to say, listen, honestly, these guys are saying they're losing money. They don't want to shut down for a year, because if they shut down for a year, it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse than it was for hockey, because now you got to sell the sport of the greedy black guys to white America again after they flush away. No. They can't afford that. There are some guys that will, but there's no way. Listen, Cuban wants to play. Mickey Arison wants to play. James Doan wants to play. Dr. Buss wants to play. Jerry Reinsdorf wants to play, because they make money. And they'll be damned they lose a season because Robert Sarver, who's a moron, and Dan Gilbert, who's a moron, and Glenn Taylor, who's a moron, and Maloof Bros, who are broken morons, screw it up. Players, 100%.
They'll be lucky if they get 50.
It's gonna be 50. It's gonna be 50. It's gonna be like 52.5, something like that. All right, next question.
52-49.
Who's winning the World Series?
52-14.
Who's winning the World Series? And do I have to tell you who's in the playoffs still?
Yeah, I pretty much stopped watching after my beloved Yankees loss. I still am mourning about that.
Well,
I'm going to say, I want to say Texas.
Good job. They're 3-1.
Yeah, I want to say Texas. I mean, I just don't see them. I mean, St. Louis is still in there, right?
You got St. Louis and Milwaukee.
Yeah. I think Texas. I think Texas wins.
Who do they beat?
Without even knowing the series, I got to go with St. Louis.
Screw St. Louis. I'm going with Milwaukee. Tony Plush all day, every day. I just don't like St. Louis.
Hey,
I just think
listen, Pujols is the guy that can't wait for this to end because he's about to sign an $800 billion contract.
Exactly. All right. Next question. Did you know that hockey started last Thursday?
No, and don't care.
I was at my friend's going away thing. I'm like, hockey started today? Oh, great job. Let's start it right in the middle of the baseball playoffs and in the middle of football season. And you wonder why no one watches your sport.
Although I do cheer for Ovechkin, it's my favorite player.
All right, we're gonna end this. We're gonna wrap this up with 2 true or false questions. And let's see if you get this right. True or false? Atlanta's hockey team moved to Winnipeg.
It doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to say true. They play hockey in Atlanta?
Not anymore.
I just can't see that being a successful sport in Atlanta. I'm going to go from Magic City to the hockey arena.
All right. And the next true or false is...
It would be pretty cool to be a hockey player in Atlanta.
Dude, we've probably walked past hockey players that had no idea they were hockey players.
I know Messier.
The next question is, true or false? Cam Newton leads all NFL QBs in total touchdowns.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to say false. I think Aaron Rodgers leads the league in quarterback touchdowns. It's either Rodgers or Brady. I'm going to go with Rodgers. Not Cam.
It's a tie between Rodgers and Brady.
There you go.
However,
Cam's probably third.
However, and I'm looking at this right now. According to ProFootballReference.com, Cam Newton has 7 passing touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns. So he has 12 touchdowns.
To Brady and Rodgers, what, 14?
Rodgers has 14 passing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he has
running.
2. I think he has 2 running.
He has at least 1.
He has 14 passing and he has 2 rush. He has 2 rush, so he has 16. But yeah, Cam Newton tearing up the league.
They're losing.
They're losing. They are losing. That's what matters.
I like Cam. I'm a Cam supporter. I'm mad I didn't pick him up week 1 on the waiver wire.
I wouldn't. We can stay there. Any questions you have for me before we wrap up?
How long? Let's get these things up, man. You're the NFL's pick'em spreadsheet, and you're gonna.
Yes.
Podcast coming out in December.
No, I'm gonna since I'm home on a Thursday night like a loser. I'm gonna put this podcast up today, so it'll be a first thing tomorrow.
And I issue a challenge to Mr. Dixon.
That will be DDixon2281 on Twitter.
He's scared of me. He's ducking me. He wouldn't answer his phone to be on the podcast. The gauntlets lay down.
All right. For Midtown Mo, I'm William H. Straff. Hopefully we'll see you next week. That is if Mo doesn't flake, because we're supposed to do this on Tuesday, but he decided to go take a nap for 6 hours. So, and he just hung up. All right. Talk to you next week. Peace.